Because it's not always about the star players and coaches. Because there's a lot going on behind the scenes of hockey as well. We had a talk with Mike Joyce, an FIH administrator, about the Hockey 2024 strategic plan for development of hockey throughout the world, to grow the game of hockey. This is how Mike describes his own job at the FIH.
I have two hats essentially. I have a hat in development for the FIH, and I have a hat in running the Hockey Foundation. Probably the easiest way to define the difference is that for the FIH, what we're doing is developing hockey. For the foundation, what we're doing is we're developing through hockey.
So there you go. If you were hoping for juicy details about your favorite players or tips and tricks on how to score an amazing goal, well, you landed in the wrong podcast. But if you're interested in a look behind the scenes of sports administration as well, stick around.
Welcome to Studio Hockey.
In November of 2018, the FIH held its biannual Congress in New Delhi. Several interesting announcements came out of this Congress. I wrote a couple of first impressions about these in my article, The Proof of the Pudding is in the Eating, on the website bhockey.com. FIH.live is a new app for viewing and sharing hockey, launching the 10th of January 2019. The FIH decided to allow events to be played on several surfaces, instead of only water-based artificial grass. And finally, they've told the world development is the main objective for the FIH. A good choice, but we still have got to see how this will go down in real life after all the nice speeches. Hockey 2024 is the title of the new global development project as proposed by the FIH to the world of hockey. It will officially take off as of January 2019, but we had a chat already about Hockey 2024 with Mike Joyce, the director for the Hockey Foundation and responsible for development within the FIH. Mike has a history of working for England Hockey. He's been involved in a private company organizing hockey camps, worked for the FIH, then the IOC, and rejoined the FIH a couple of months ago to spearhead the development of hockey. As Mike will explain later on, he has a dual role. Together with John Wyatt, Sport and Development Director for the FIH, he is responsible for developing hockey around the globe. As Managing Director for the Hockey Foundation, his objective is developing through hockey around the world. The Hockey Revolution was and is the existing global strategy for the FIH. We've talked about this before extensively. So Mike, why the new strategy entitled Hockey 2024?
So I started in June with the FIH or with the Hockey Foundation in particular. When I arrived, John Wyatt had just started as the development director for the FIH, and we sat down and we looked at what was currently available and what strategically the FIH was planning in terms of development. And to be quite frank, it was fairly limited. There was nothing that we could pick up to say, okay, this is our objective for the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years for hockey and its growth. And so whilst we were both working in two separate organizations, essentially, we decided to create a joint strategy. We wanted to leave a lot of time to consult and discuss. So we aimed to then launch at Congress for this strategy. So we had a good, 4 or 5 months to just talk to people, understand the environment, and get to know what it was that were the issues and find a few solutions. So that's sort of the process that we went through. And that includes Twitter discussions and social media battles. All of those fuel the decisions that we make, and perhaps sometimes that's not clear, but it is clear. It is clear we're listening, or I certainly am, certainly listening to people's opinions. I don't always agree with them, but I certainly listen to them and consider them.
Okay, Mike, tell us something more about Hockey 2024.
Sure. Okay. So clearly there was a starting point, and the Hockey Revolution was that starting point. And it it's very much still there. It's very much still a strategy through to 2024, the global strategy. The goals are still relevant. So particularly for development, the generate millions more followers around the world is relevant. But what we felt was it wasn't specific enough in terms of growing the game and participation and actually, really getting down to the people involved in the sport. It was more about broadcast followers and increasing that kind of traffic and that interest in the sport. So Hockey 2024 is to address that. It's to really highlight those areas. So there's 3 pillars: participation, education, infrastructure. The first one, I mean, it's not rocket science. Let's just say that it's a development strategy.
And let's keep it simple. That's always good.
Yeah, it's and often it's not what you say or what strategy you make. It's more about how you actually deliver it.
Absolutely.
And so I'm consciously aware of the fact that I've spent 4 or 5 months creating a strategy, whereas actually I'd much prefer to have spent 4 or 5 months going out and doing things. Mm-hmm. However, this is the world we live in. We need to get people on board and involved in the process and make things attractive. So that's what we do. So participation is about everybody in the game. So whether you're a player, coach, official, administrator, volunteer, whatever role you happen to have, and it's about having a clear development pathway for those as individuals, whether they want to just get involved once or twice a year or on occasion, or whether they want to really immerse themselves in it for sort of lifelong participation in the sport. So it's about having opportunities for them to do that. Mm-hmm. What I guess is important at this point is that, yes, this is an FIH strategy, but actually it's an intent for the whole of hockey. The FIH is not going to be able to go out and deliver hundreds of thousands of courses and programs worldwide. What it can do is it can embrace the hockey family, it can support them, it can find a sort of common philosophy that they can attach themselves to. Maybe it can support them in terms of giving them some brand awareness and actually being completely open about everybody making a contribution. Rather than it feeling the need that it has to be FIH this, FIH that. It doesn't have to be. What we need to do is lead that movement, not control it. So that's participation. Education is obviously about making sure that both pathways are in place for players to learn and develop, but also the people who are delivering programs. So people who are learning their trade as an umpire or a coach, or as a trainer, an educator. So making sure that everything is in place, that whatever role you're in, you're able to access some kind of education that supports that. Mm-hmm. And that goes from the smallest kid picking up a stick for the first time through to your chief exec of a national association who needs to understand the importance of transparency and good governance in their sport, understanding how to connect to their National Olympic Committee, understanding how to engage with their clubs and with their members. All of those are part of education. Mm-hmm. And then the third pillar is infrastructure. So infrastructure is it's not just about pitches and sticks and places to play and all of that, but it is that. Mm-hmm. It's also about the structure in terms of the organizational structure of the sport. A lot of the time things fall apart because you don't have a strong operational infrastructure within either a club or a nation or even internationally. And so that makes it difficult to implement anything that you want to do. So that's a clear part. And we talk about having organizations that are hockey ready. And so that's the sort of strap line. So there's a number of things that mean you're hockey ready. Everything from gender equality to good governance, and everything in between. And those are the things that we'd be looking and expecting organizations to be able to address. One interesting part of that is also NGOs and private organisations. So perhaps in the past, both domestically and internationally, we're a little bit shy of getting involved with commercial organisations who are working in hockey. And NGOs seem to just be allowed to just carry on doing what they're doing without any support at all from us internationally or from national associations. So we want to engage with them. We want to recognise them, recognise the work they're doing, and not be shy of the fact that you may have a coaching company making some money and profit from hockey, but actually they're doing a fantastic job. So why shouldn't we embrace them and get them involved in the program? So it's about everybody. It's not just about the traditional institutional structure.
Thanks for explaining this, Mike. I especially like the simplicity in this strategy. 3 pillars: participation, education, and infrastructure. I agree, these are the elements needed to grow the game of hockey. Each of these pillars come with 2 sets of measurable objectives. For participation, you mention more people participating in hockey as the first goal. Also, from a recent survey, you've drawn the conclusion we've got some 30 million people involved in or playing hockey around the world today. How would you define an active player? When do you consider someone an active player?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and a question that's been asked many times by many people.
Probably.
You won't be surprised to hear.
Nope.
Let me give you the perspective, because again, that's important to me.
Yeah.
So I used to do this job for England Hockey. I used to be the club development officer, and we used to measure the number of club members who are members of clubs who are affiliated to England Hockey. So individuals don't affiliate to England Hockey, clubs do. In Holland, individuals affiliate to KNHB, so they have a clear idea of who is playing in clubs in Holland. So going back to England then, it was clear, and from the State of the Game survey, they identified that sort of in the region of 110,000 people play hockey in England. And this is what they're required to report, both to their government in terms of funding and support for the National Association, as well as reporting to us through the survey. But what that doesn't tell you is all of the hockey that's going on outside of that structure. And if you were to talk to England Hockey about the number of people actually participating, and they have their own reference points, so whether it's once a week, once a month, once a year, for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 50 minutes, or whatever, they have their reference point, and they would say that there's in the region of just short of 1 million hockey players in the UK. So then you make that comparison.
That's a big difference.
So you make that comparison. And I taught in a school that put 30 teams out of a weekend for girls in one term, and then 30 teams out for boys in another term. None of those figures necessarily are included in the figures that are presented. Because they're not measurable within a structure. So from that base point, I'm not suggesting that that sort of drastic difference is the same in every nation in the world. But if we were to just report the number of players that are reported by the national associations through their institutional structures, then we would have a significantly smaller figure than the one that we're proposing, which I don't think is a fair reflection of the size of our sport globally. So we ran a few numbers, we made a few estimations, we came up with a figure about 3 times the size of the one that we're quoting, and then we rationalized it as best we could, and that's why we're saying 30 million. I guess what I'd say about that is there specific minute detail about an individual within that 30 million who's played 5 minutes of hockey a week, blah blah blah? No, there isn't. But what's clear is that each year or each second year that we do this survey, we will use the same process. So whilst we may not be 100% accurate in the total, what we can do is we can determine whether that's going up or down, or whether the sport's growing or shrinking in future years. Mm-hmm. And that's really the aim of what we were trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. While I get the number of 30 million participants is not just the players, it's officials, it's coaches, trainers, administrators and players. But don't you agree a sport exists for and because of its players, its active players? Yes, all others are part of the hockey family and important to the game, but the goal should be to increase the amount of players. Agreed?
Yeah, I'll go with you some way on that.
Okay, I'm surprised you're not going all the way with me on that.
I agree that ultimately it's about the athlete, it's about the player and the game. But I also it's not only because I think that the value of our sport is that it's a family sport. It's inclusive, and whatever role you're playing, mm-hmm. it's as valuable within that community of hockey than anyone else. Of course, they're only there because you're going to play a game of hockey at the end of the day, and it's about the people involved in playing it. But I play hockey probably twice a year at the moment in my club's veterans team.
Mm-hmm. So do you consider yourself still a hockey player?
Well, indeed. Does that make me a hockey player? I wish I could play more, but I don't. I coach, so I coach every week, twice a week. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm a participant within that 30 million, but I don't know whether playing 2 games a year qualifies me as a player, or I don't know. And you're right, we don't have the specific detail around that measure.
Well, I get where you're going and agree the hockey family is more than just its players. However, when talking about the goal of growing hockey around the world, I do think the focus should be on growing the amount of active hockey players, playing and or training at least once a week for at least 20 to 25 weeks a year.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that is an important indicator, and you highlighted the 6 goals, and the first goal is more people participating in hockey globally, mm-hmm. and beneath that goal are indicators, and they'll be promoted and launched in the new year, mm-hmm. and so within that you've got a clear indicator of more players participating. Clear. Mm-hmm. I guess just to throw a spanner in the works for your argument. So I train once a week. I play on a Thursday night. I play veterans hockey. We train. We don't really train. We just play games.
You're getting closer then.
So every week I'm playing hockey, and then it just happens that I only played 2 games this year. Yeah. Does that make me a participant?
Yeah, for me that makes you a participant. That for me makes you a player even. Because I think also the core and the foundation of our sports is the recreational game. Mm-hmm. It's not the top sport game. It's the recreational game, and that is the core. So if you train once a week for, let's say, at least 20 weeks a year, and you get some games in there, yeah, for me you are a player. I think that is somebody that is actively involved on the pitch as a player for our game of hockey. I get it that not everybody will be in the position, even here in Western Europe, where we have the possibility to play a competition game every weekend. Even in this environment, it's not possible for all to be there every weekend. You've got people who are traveling for work, you've got family commitments, you've got all kinds of reasons why a lot of people at certain stages in their life are not able to be there every weekend for a competition game, recreational competition game. So no, for me, if you train once a week and try to get as many games as possible during the year, for me that it's difficult to have a really definition of what is a hockey player, but that would get close for me.
Sure, and I think if you were to look at some of the top nations, you'll find that they have varying degrees of that kind of information. I know one or two of them certainly do, and they've got extensive data on who's participating, where they're participating, how often they're doing it. But we have 137 members around the world, and there's a massive difference between what's being collected in, say, Northern Europe and what's being collected in Africa and the Pacific Islands and South America or wherever. So it's almost the state of the game survey is about getting enough information for us to make reasonable choices about what we do and how we invest in our game, without putting them under so much pressure to find extensive information data that actually they're spending more time doing that than actually playing the game.
Moving on to the second goal below your pillar of participation, you state you want more nations participating in international events. Obviously a nice goal, but I do not really see the real added value to this. I would prefer maybe another goal where we could measure, for example, the inclusivity of our game of hockey. How can we include not just the youth and fit young adults, but also work towards a full gender balance in all countries and get elderly more actively involved in the game again, as well as those with certain disabilities? But also, we still have this label, especially in Europe, of being a sport for the white and middle upper class. While I don't consider our game of hockey to be elitist, as some might say, I do think we could do more to open up towards lower income households as well. Not forgetting about the special values that make our sport so special, such as fair play and respect, but I do think we could be more inclusive. And maybe that should be the second goal below participation.
Yeah, there's a few points in there, so I'll try and address them all. So first of all, you're absolutely right that the inclusivity is hugely important, and so within the first goal, so more people participating in hockey globally, you will find when we launch them that within there you've got specific objectives for para hockey, for example. Gender equality goes through everything we do, so that will be a specific objective within all of the goals. I guess the other thing I would highlight is that there's two what we called inspirational goals, and they're around social development. And that's very much about hockey playing its role in developing society and to coin a phrase, making the world a better place through hockey, as opposed to just sport. And I think we do that a lot as hockey. There's some magnificent projects around the world, both domestically, but also operating country to country that are doing this. They're making a huge difference. And they're growing communities, and things like Hockey Dreams Foundation is a brilliant example of that. They build a community. There's opportunities for healthcare. There's opportunities for employment, and all of these things. That's what we want more of within hockey. But what we also need is more countries participating internationally, and I'll tell you why. Because if that's not clear, this is why. So if I'm a Sierra Leone, so Sierra Leone played their first international match this year. If I'm a national association, or I'm trying to become a national association within a country, then I need the support of the National Olympic Committee or the Ministry of Sport. Most of the time, the support comes from supporting their team to travel internationally to recognize tournaments and events. That's where they get most of their money from. It's almost the catalyst to create that engagement, to then get that support. And as an Olympic sport, we have that opportunity. If we weren't an Olympic sport, the chances are we would lose millions and millions and millions of dollars a year through NOCs not supporting hockey in their country. But because they do, that's the benefit. So in order to create that pathway for Sierra Leone in this case, yes, of course, we want that grassroots development and opportunity to go into schools, get them into clubs, create clubs, get them playing hockey. But we also need that international outlet because, to be quite frank, that's what the politicians are interested in. They're interested in their country being represented on the international stage. And so we have to play that game a little bit. And that's why this is there and why it's important, because it's the catalyst for everything else within that pathway.
Okay, let's leave the participation pillar of the Hockey 2024 plan and move on to the second pillar of education. Clearly an important one to grow the game of hockey. The first measurable goal for education is a no-brainer. Better skilled and more professional hockey people. Yeah, no one will dispute the importance of this goal, I guess. But your second goal is a little less clear for me. It states, more hockey athletes at the heart of hockey programs. Well, I guess it sounds nice, but what is the real added value there? Honestly, I think we should maybe focus on something like opening up to other sports and learning from these other sports rather than focusing on our own heroes of the game.
Okay, so I guess firstly, yeah, of course we look at other sports and we engage with them on a regular basis. My previous job, as you may know, was dealing with 57 international federations on a variety of projects. Mm-hmm. When I was previously at the FIH, we set up the academy, and we did that in collaboration with World Rugby. In fact, for all of the trainer and educator courses we had for the first 2 years, we had a World Rugby educator delivering alongside us. Mm-hmm. So certainly agree with you 100% on that. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to learn from other sports as much as we can. In terms of athletes, well, you said yourself that players are fundamentally what our sport is about. It's about the game. And so, yes, I agree. And we have, and our athletes, our top athletes, international athletes, are the ones they're the shop window for our sport. These are the guys and girls who are out there, showing the magnificent things that we have in our sport. And so, of course, we have to involve them in our programs. We have to capitalize on their success, and we need to highlight them and promote them and make celebrities of them, and then get them to spread the messages that we're trying to spread through the development strategy. So I want to be able to send members of our athletes committee to places where they're going to inspire and encourage people to get involved in the game, and I want them to understand the messages that we're trying to promote as hockey, and to eloquently describe them to politicians in those countries when they go there. Mm-hmm. I just think I've seen from 2 years with the IOC, I've seen the real power and value that you can get from athletes when you involve them. And we don't do that very well in hockey, and we should do it a lot more. We should celebrate and promote them more, and get them to. No one wants to listen to me talking about it. When I go and visit a country, they want to listen to a superstar, a Tom Bone, or a Kate Richardson Walsh, or a whoever. Yeah, they want to listen to them because they're the ones that are out there doing these magnificent things.
The third pillar of your Hockey 2024 plan is infrastructure. One of its measurable goals is more places to play and better access to equipment. Again, a no-brainer for me. The second goal stated for the pillar of infrastructure, however, says stronger club, school and organization networks. Obviously, well, for me, as I am from Western Europe, I've been introduced to hockey through our system of family clubs. We consider these to be the foundation of our game, and honestly, for me, It's the model for all to aspire to, all around the world, to not only grow the game of hockey, but also to really get the value of hockey. But I understand the situation is different in other parts of the world, where this culture of family clubs does not exist. So, how do you see this one?
Unfortunately, there's no one way to do it. It's different in every market that you go into. I was involved in the TAP West Africa, Target Assistance Program West Africa project, and in Accra in Ghana, the teams, the clubs, are all attached to organizations, businesses, commercial structures or public organizations. If you learn to play hockey in a local community in Kumasi in the center of Ghana, and you get quite good, you get a job, and you get a job in the city in Accra, and part of that job is that you play for the customs team in the local league, and the club grows in that way. The business or the organization grows in that way, and the individuals get this huge sort of life social benefit from being involved in hockey. Mm-hmm. But that's quite rare. It's amazing, really, that you go to Ghana in Africa and you find that opportunity where you don't have that opportunity in England for sure. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing that you find it there. So there's many different ways to do things. I had a really interesting meeting with Floris Yambuvalander when I was in Delhi, and talking to him about 1 Million Hockey Legs, which is his project there, and they have partners with the local state government, but they also have the Tata Trust and Tata Steel involved in supporting what they're doing, and they have a three-tier structure. They have the sort of grassroots initiation programs. They then have regional centers where the kids can go. So if they have an interest and they want to be involved, they go to the regional center, and the regional center is sort of like a club in a way. It's run like a club. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And then they have a third tier, which is their elite center, so their performance center. Mm-hmm. And there, it's the opportunity to play on a wider state-to-state tournaments, and then potentially the opportunity to then go through and have trials or represent the country. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that as a structure works really well there. And it could potentially operate very well elsewhere in India as well. Whether that's right for another market, I don't know. It really depends on what the existing infrastructure is. If there's a good, strong school sport infrastructure in a country, then why not have hockey in it? So that would be an objective because it creates that. If there's a multi-sport club culture within a country, then maybe that's what we use to attach ourselves to. It really is different from market to market, but there's many different solutions. And again, other sports have done things similar. All 92 recognized Olympic sports or non-Olympic sports are trying to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of evidence of what works where, but we need to support the national associations to actually do that and to address that. Mm-hmm. That's our role. We can't do it on our own. It's like me and a couple of others in the FIH. It's not, if we try and do it on our own, we've got no chance. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we engage a wider audience, then we can hopefully make an impact.
As we talked about, in my part of the world, hockey is a family sport, played within a family club. The reason I chose hockey as a sport for my children, as their parent, is because I believe it's an important part of their education to be involved in both an individual as well as a team sport. However, I do realize this is different in other parts of the world. When I spoke to someone from India, for example, about this, he stated they do not have this luxury. Their first goal is to get their children a meal every day, a safe home environment, a good school and a job to make a living. And they do not worry about picking the right sport as a part of education for their children. In lots of countries, hockey, or any sport, is mainly seen as a possible career opportunity to make money, to survive. How do you deal with these different situations?
Yeah, so I guess so. So people say to me, "What's the Hockey Foundation? What's the difference?" So I have two hats essentially. I have a hat in development for the FIH, and I have a hat in running the Hockey Foundation. Probably the easiest way to define the difference is that for the FIH, what we're doing is developing hockey. Mm-hmm. For the foundation, what we're doing is we're developing through hockey. Mm-hmm. So the difference is that when and actually it's not a difference. I think that both should be completely intrinsically connected. I think that the values that we have of sport and as hockey and the family values that we have lend themselves perfectly to social goals. Mm-hmm. And this is why when I presented, I talked a lot about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, mm-hmm. because and we're talking specifically about good health and well-being. So just by playing sport, the health benefits of playing sport for a start are huge. The access to quality education, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, all of these things we can contribute to as hockey. And all of these things are social objectives within a lot of the nations that we're trying to develop the sport in. And you're absolutely right. If we go in and say, oh, forget about going to collect some water from the well, come and just have a knock around. It makes no sense at all. But if you do, and there's some fantastic examples, particularly in basketball, NBA programs, where they've gone into countries to develop basketball, and then they've ended up running health clinics and empowering women through education and all of these different things, which add massive value to what we can offer as a sport. Mm-hmm. You know, we live within the world of the hockey family, and quite often we forget to move our perception to someone who's not in the family, who doesn't really get hockey, who's done something else all their life, and why do you not get it? Why do you not understand how amazing hockey is? I just don't get it. Why do you not get it? And actually, it's because we're not transferring ourselves to their perspective. We're not looking at it from their point of view, mm-hmm. and saying, okay, what is it they want from this? What can we offer them? Well, we can offer them a job. We can offer them healthcare. We can offer them education. And at the same time, we can grow hockey. We can create a fantastic hockey community, some clubs. We can get them playing the sport. We can grow the game. So I think all of those go hand in hand. And one of the requirements to be involved in Hockey for Life is that you're contributing or you're demonstrating how you can contribute to one of these UN Sustainable Development Goals. Mm. So. And I think everybody is. They don't really understand necessarily that they are doing it already, but they are. And you say exactly the same. You send your kids to play hockey because you know the social impact it's going to have on them and their sort of life education, because they're going to be around people who are making sensible decisions and not behaving like idiots and learning about trust and respect and all of those things, and that's education. That's what we can do as a sport.
So, Mike, what do you consider the best pathway to grow the game of hockey? Because I'm getting mixed messages from the FIH and some other federations. Should we focus on getting more followers so this gets us more participants, or should we focus on more participants? And this way, the followers will, follow.
I think you have to do both, and I think you have to start from from both points. I remember, so when I was how old would I have been? 15, maybe? 15. You remember Great Britain won the gold medal in Seoul in 1988. And I remember turning up to my club training session the next day, and there must have been about another 100 kids arrived at the training session because they just watched GB win gold on TV, and obviously they were inspired to come along and have a go. I reckon within about 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 20 of those hundreds of kids were continuing to play, and they were continuing to play because they got the bug. And because there was only that capacity there for those 20 to play, we as a club couldn't cope with the hundreds that came along. We weren't ready for it. We didn't expect it. And also perhaps we weren't doing things in the best way. Maybe it wasn't the sessions weren't as high a quality, or they weren't as good as they should have been. And actually, we learned a huge amount of lessons from that. And this was something I revisited when the GB girls won gold in Rio, and the impact that had. And there was a similar impact, but the difference was that the infrastructure and the quality of coaching and organisation of the clubs in that particular country was so much stronger, so much better prepared for that. And if you look at it now, you look at clubs like Surbiton Hockey Club in London. They're huge. There are hundreds and hundreds of kids at those in their junior sections, and this is because of this inspiration, but it's also because of the traction and their ability to retain these players when they come and have that first experience or that first initiation to the game. So it's both really. One, we want more followers. We want more people interested in our international competitions, watching them on TV and seeing how brilliant they are and being inspired to go along and have a go for the first time or to go back to hockey. But then we also need to develop at grassroots and provide those initiation opportunities, someone to just come along and start that pathway of and we call it start, play, stay. But it's all of the elements within that are critically important. So it's both.
Obviously both, but still, would you agree with my statement? My feeling the FIH, and not just them, have had its focus too much on getting more followers and not enough on increasing the participants? Because I strongly feel we should first focus on the growth of the amount of the number of players, and that this is the only way to sustainable growth of our followers or fan base as well.
Yeah, I mean, probably to some degree, and that's why we're launching Hockey2024 because we feel that this is addressing the more followers, the more participants part. To be quite honest, I don't really care how many followers we have on social media or things like that. To me, that's really not that important. To me, what's interesting is how many lives we directly impact on as our sport. And for us as the FIH, our responsibility is to empower the organizations who are doing that. Because we're not doing that. We're doing it sometimes. We run a few educational programs and we run a few workshops at events, but really our job is to empower national associations, continental federations, NGOs, recognized organizations, clubs, schools, to empower them to do it for themselves. I'm not going to come into Belgium or Holland or England and write the development strategy. That would be foolish, arrogant, and naive of me. But what I am going to do is I'm going to try and encourage them to contribute to a global strategy through what they're already doing, so that we can increase the value of hockey as a global product, a global interest for people to get involved with. So, yeah, followers, the bottom line of followers, no, I don't really care. But yes, I understand the importance of it. I understand the importance of the number of people who are watching our broadcasts. I understand that you need to invest in the quality of those broadcasts, because that's what encourages people to stay and watch for more than 20 seconds. All of that's important, but my job is about people and about getting people to play and to stay in the game and to contribute as volunteers, as coaches, as umpires, as officials, and all of that side of things. That's what I'm interested in.
Well, that's it for today. We've been talking with Mike Joyce, Managing Director for the Hockey Foundation, about their new development strategy, Hockey2024, to be officially launched in the new year 2019, so any day now. So we're glad the new CEO for the FIH, Thierry Weil, kept his promise in his first talk with us last summer, when he said he would move development to the top of the FIH goals for the coming years. Check out the article, An Answer from Thierry Weil, following my earlier piece on the end of hockey, both on bhockey.com. That is b-hockey.com. But as I wrote in my column following the FIH Congress earlier this month, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Let's hope 2019 brings us some great tasting pudding.
Thanks for tuning in to Studio Hockey. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. And as always, enjoy your hockey. Bye bye.